Welcome back. MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. While we usually focus on MTG Arena ladder details in terms of the best decks for the metagame breakdowns, there's sometimes a differing metagame when it comes to some of the tournaments, particularly in terms of MTGO, Magic the Gathering online leagues and challenges. So what we're going to do with this one here, I'm going to be seeing how the reception is, but starting up a new series leading up to the weekend every weekend. So just kind of standard decks of the week that kind of do well in a tournament setting, kind of what's being seen in terms of MTGO, and then we can kind of compare and contrast at times to what we've seen in standard on MTG Arena. Arena tends to, because you play more volume of games, you usually want to be more fast, so we tend to have a little bit more aggro in those there. I've noticed at times more of a mid-rangey focus when it comes to MTGO. Generally speaking, more of the decks tend to be broader in terms of having answers for a number of matchups as opposed to just, I'm going to ley line you on turn one and try to win that way there. Not saying that doesn't happen, but there's kind of a different dichotomy when it comes to that. So let me know what you think about this in the comments, if this is something I should continue or just stick to the usual scheduled metagame breakdown, but want to kind of take a different look. And we're going to be getting data from MTG decks. They do a nice job of curating the MTGO data. So we're going to be focusing on either the challenges, which are kind of bigger tournaments, and then the daily leagues, which will focus on the 5-0 trophies that came out in that. So we're going to be looking at kind of the top 5 or 6 decks, and then throwing in one at the end that's in more recent days has been picking up a bit in terms of popularity. These are all best of 3 lists. MTGO does play traditional standard. So in terms of the meta share that's happening in the last 30 days on MTGO, Gruul Aggro lists make up about 12%. Golgari Midrange make up about 8. Dimir Midrange just a shade under 8. Mono white tokens at about 6. These usually either have like a light splash for red, for Imidane's Recruiter in the side, or black for Kaya. So we'll take a look at an example of that, but they're Caretaker Talent decks. Azorius Tempo is the Oculus decks. And then Domain Overlords is a deck that's been picking up a bit of popularity recent, kind of a pivot in terms of where domain decks were, kind of a different kind of similar concept, different configuration of those decks there. So we're going to just look at some samples of lists. For a couple of them, there's different variants. So we're going to start with Gruul Aggro. So this one won the latest MTGO challenge. They came first place. They went 8-1. So this one here is by Ura first. So there's kind of 2 variations. There is a Leyline version, which we'll look at after this. And then there's one that's an Innkeeper's Talent version. So the talent is just, you're not comboing out with Vraskin here. It's more just put counters on things. It triggers Valiant. So you have Heartfire Hero, Emberheart Challenger. So it's reoccurring Valiant triggers that can work. Make your things bigger. Works out nice with the double strike. So kind of got the mouse sub theme. Only 2 questing druids in the main. Might of the Meek, Monstrous Rage, a couple Snakeskin Veils coming in from green, as well as Shock as some removal. A couple Restless Ridgeline in the mana base. Your sideboards, you got Pick Your Poisons, as well as Paw Patch Formation, kind of a split between targeted enchantment removal versus sacrificing of flying. So you get some different types of effects there. Forge for the Grandier matchup, Scorching Shot as removal, Graveyard Hate, Obliterating Bolt as some more removal, and then Torch the Tower as cheap interaction there. So there's that variant of Gruul. And then there's this one here, went 5-0 in a challenge by Sewer20. So this is kind of the Leyline variant. So Leyline of Resonance, you have more of an low to the ground aggressive deck. So Scamp in here, along with Heartfire Hero, Swift Spear, Emberheart Challenger. And a lot of these lists are actually picking up playing Picnic Ruiner over Slickshot Show Off. I guess just having the ability to have the sorcery side of it with counters, it does allow you to have double strike. You do have to preemptively play your spells into it though, because it checks at the beginning of combat. So you do have to be mindful of that. Similar kind of effects, turn inside out. And then another card, I personally don't like this card. I think it's kind of bad, all things. So the core of it is like it would double up and let you draw 4 cards by just discarding 1. But it requires you to have a card in hand to discard, so it's a really bad top deck if you're kind of hell-bent. The Wicked Roll is nice. Just add some extra power. You can distribute them amongst different creatures. So that works there as well. You could just create like a Wicked Roll and attach it. So it gives you kind of the optionality there, but 2 mana to just create a Wicked Roll is kind of low. You really want to be playing it for the card draw elements. This one's just 20 lands, no tap lands in terms of creature land. Very similar sideboard configuration, just opting for 3 Paw Patch over the Pick Your Poison, Twisted Fealty for big stuff, Package Bolt, and Torch. Golgari Midrange has a couple different variants. Kind of the core you'll see with a lot of these, just heavy removal, cut downs, go for the throats, tear asunder, being very flexible. The combination of Glissa, Mosswood Dread Knight in here, along with Deep Cavern Bat. This version here has got Hunter's Talent as a fight effect, that can push through some trample damage. The rest for hand hate, main board, graveyard hate in Ghost Vacuum. Also could be a win condition in a way by just animating. And then this version here is on Unstoppable Slasher as well as Sheoldred. A couple lilies in this one here. Sideboard, just hand hate. Nissa, really good against any of the enchantment domain decks. More graveyard hate. When you want to shift and be a little bit more aggressively focused and grind your matchups, Cost Chronicle could be card advantage. Tear Asunder, really flexible removal. Frillback, similar case. Grind your black base removal decks. Red base decks. Things that aren't exiling like white, you have the Aclazots. Unholy Annex is kind of your grind element for the mid-range mirrors, provides some card advantage, also lets you create the demon as a win condition, and choking miasma for against like any of the token decks, stuff like that. There's this version here by Marco Fabrizi, also a 5-0 in the same league. This one here is a little bit more aggressively slanted in the main. 4 Caustic main, Mosswood, Glissa, 2 Shellies. You have the Archfiend, the Dross in the main, so just a big beater at 4. 1 Frillback main, and then 2 Sentinels. So a little bit more. I use aggressive or like aggro-y loosely, but it's a little bit more forward facing in terms of trying to push damage through. The rest, 1 Virtue main, and then the Unholy Annex main along with Liliana. Annex gets the addition of the Archfiend the Dross as another demon in the main board. Your sideboard, just Anoint with Affliction, really good exile base removal, good against the various mono red threats since it causes a die trigger, Miasma Sweeper, Cruel Claw Heist, discard. This figure is more cheap removal, Frillback, just an additional copy, again flexible, it hits graveyards, artifacts, enchantments, can gain you life. Sweeper and Gix, Liliana, and Nissa for the grindier matchups, more Terra Sunders, and more hand hate and duress, so you can go up to the full 4 duress. Dimir Midrange is another deck that can be tweaked along the ways, but a lot of the lists now are playing the combination of cheap evasive flyers, Deep Cavern Bat, Spireglass Siren, Fairy Mastermind. Some will play Mockingbird that I've seen with Gix to draw you cards, as well as Kaido that can be cheated in off these here. So you can kind of have an evasive creature, they're not blocked, cheat into play Kaido, and then have that alternative win condition that doesn't get hit by sweepers. Bunch of cheap removal. You have flash effects, essence scatter. 3 steps ahead is more interaction. Some creatures and shellies in there. Sideboard, just more counters, hand hate, various removal options, cut down, some cheap counters, bitter triumph, Vertise, a flexible counterspell / removal. Unable to scream, just another way to kind of get rid of troublesome permanent or like creatures, stuff like that. Just kind of removes their abilities. Negates, and then Enduring Curiosity for the grindier matchups gives you some more card advantage. Kind of shift more to like a flash based deck. Mono white, so this one here was by RPA, 5-0 in a league. So this version here is playing Shadowy Backstreets. You also have the Sunken Citadels. You can make treasures with Mountain Port as well for the Kaya Intangible Slayer in the sideboard. Outside of that, it's base mono white deck. You'll notice pretty much all the lands can produce like planes. So you'll sometimes see laydown arms in these lists, so taking advantage of that. You have laydown arms, Parting Gust can blink your own stuff or exile opponent stuff. Get Lost as removal. You have the Caretaker's Talent as well as Enduring Innocence card draw engine. So any token comes in can draw you multiple cards each turn. Archangel Elspeth for grind your elements. You have some Bezas in here, a Lauren main. So it's kind of your next evolution of the Boros Forge decks. Elspeth Smite's cheap removal, Kaya for the grindy matchups. Can't be really targeted by Leyline bindings or stuff like that. Really good at just kind of stealing their best thing and kind of taking over the game. Lauren, Artifact Enchantment Hate, Graveyard Hate and Rest in Peace. Moonbringer Valkyrie is kind of the Baneslayer Angel, just a big creature with lifelink, and also backup if you have like a Beza going or something like that for the turn. Temporary. We have Azorius Tempo, so this was a 5-0 by Nanovo. So this is the Oculus deck that we've seen a bit of on Arena. Looking at it, nothing really deviating from it. So kind of the core of this deck here, self-mill, kind of loot, and then you want to mill over your key creatures in Hadijin or Oculus. Lock Pranks do a really good job of that. And then use either recommission or helping get them back into sideboard's just got more counters, various removal options. Doorkeeper Thrall can shut off ETB style effects. Flanker for Graveyard Hate. Smite is cheap removal along with temporary lockdown, so you can kind of shift up. Your threat's not getting hit by lockdown. It allows you to kind of deal with those more aggressive decks. And we've have the Overlords. So there's a number of 5-0s from this Dimir Domain Overlords deck. This one got second place in the challenge that Gruul deck won. So this deck here, no Atraxa, but you have 4 red Overlords that deal 4 damage. You have Overlord of the Hauntwoods, obviously the ramp element for Domain, helps enable the Leyline bindings. You have Overlord of the Mistmoors. This got Get Lost, main board Paw Patch formation. Doppelgang is the only blue card in the main. This gets helped with Overlord of the Hauntwoods to cast. You have Sunfalls, Spelunking as a way to have your lands come to play untapped. So you're playing like a bunch of the Surveil lands, kind of helps in that case. Up the Beanstalk, the draw engine with any of Overlords. Sideboard, cheap removal and Elspeth Smite, Exercise, flexible removal, Ghost Vacuum for Graveyard Hate, full set and negate, and then lastly, so this one's a little bit low in terms of play percentage, but in the recent couple days, it's put up a few 5-0s. This is Azorius Auras. So this one's from MKC. So you are playing things like Entity Tracker that draws you cards. Scavenger puts counters on things with Eerie. Inquisitive Glimmer reduces the cost, so you get some value there by just getting cheaper enchantments. Gremlin Tamer is kind of your young Pyromancer style effect with Eerie. During Innocence gives you a card draw. Plays really nicely with the Gremlin Tamer. And then Silent Hall Creeper can be unblockable. Draws you cards, put counters, and then can become a copy of something else. Phase Flight as a protection effect and can give flying. Prop's Edict is an enchantment that can then put more counters on things. Armor gets your things really big, gives them first strike. Shardmaid's Rescue for protection. Sheltered by Ghost as removal, lifelink, and ward. Also Smite, like we've been mentioning. Enduring Curiosity. Card draw engine out of the side in the grindier matchups. If they're going to be bringing in more removal, you don't necessarily want to have as many enchantments per se, like auras, if they're going to kill stuff. So the Curiosity can give you a different kind of win condition. Get Lost is removal. Lauren, Artifact Enchantment Hate. Restless Anchorage could come in with the Curiosity just in the grindier matchups, having access to a creature land. No More Lies and negate as cheap. That's it for the week. These are kind of the tournament things that are showing up, the kind of the most played decks, things that are being placing. There's a bunch of like one-off 5-0s here and there, but these are kind of the more common decks you're seeing. Let me know what you think about this in addition to the arena content that we're doing, if this is something you'd like to see more often. We'll catch you next time.